Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Flanagan, and I am the CEO of Actua. Actua is a national charity that engages youth in experiences that build skills and confidence in science, technology, engineering, and math. And we do that in 500 communities across Canada. Today, I am so pleased to be joined by Audrey Lara, who is the Chief Financial Officer for Randstad Canada. Audrey is also on the board of directors of the Randstad Charitable Foundation, where she fulfills the role of treasurer. And before we get into a conversation where we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion and the future of work, I am also thrilled to have the opportunity to officially announce that Randstad Canada has become a supporter of Actua's and specifically of our Future Skills project. So through that investment from the Randstad Foundation, we will be supporting over 1,000 undergraduate students who work for Actua's network members across the country. And not only will they be receiving incredibly rich skill training and experiences to prepare them for the future of work, but they'll also have the opportunity to be mentored and coached by Randstad employees. So we are absolutely, we're so grateful for the partnership. It's extremely exciting and very happy to be able to kick it off with you, Audrey, having this conversation. So welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So maybe we could kick it off. I'm incredibly interested, and I know those watching will be, in how you actually came to be the Chief Financial Officer at Randstad. So could you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, for sure. So my story begins in Guadeloupe. I left Guadeloupe, which is in the French Caribbean island where I was born and raised. And I left there when I was 20 years old to pursue my studies and started my professional career in Paris in 2003 in financial audit at Deloitte and Associates. After 7 years, I joined a fast-growing startup specializing in online advertising, which is called Criteo, where I held several finance positions, ending up as regional CFO for the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. During my 7 years there, I accompanied the exponential growth of the company and contributed to its IPO on the Nasdaq in 2013, opened several international subsidiaries, set up the group's tax structure, and managed its transition from foreign private issuer to domestic registrant status in the United States. It was an amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience that shaped my career and enabled me to acquire rare finance experience for someone my age. In 2017, my family and I decided to move to Montreal, and a few months after our arrival, I joined LXR & Co., which is a company which is listed on the TSX and specializes in secondhand luxury items. And I joined them as a CFO. After a year there, I met with the amazing Randstad team, and I joined the company in April 2019.
That's amazing. So you've lived all over the world, which is wonderful. And you know, one of the things that is so important to the work Actua is doing, and I know important to you, is around gender equity, and specifically knowing that there's still a very significant gap in STEM, so in science and technology fields, when it comes to the proportion of representation of women. Actua has been working on this for the past 25 years. We engage 200,000 girls every year in opportunities that build their skills and make sure that they can fulfill the leadership roles that they're meant to in these fields. So with that in mind, I know that Randstad has just published a report on the disproportionate impacts, negative impacts around COVID-19 on women. And for those of us who have seen this research and have worked in this field for so many years, we are alarmed, we're concerned. So perhaps you could talk a little bit about some of the findings of this report and how the pandemic has the potential to increase the gap of women in STEM even further.
For sure, it's a real concern. In Canada, we noticed that 20% of women have lost their jobs versus only 13% for men. And according to Statistics Canada, among the population of the 25 to 55 years old, the job loss rate for women has been twice as high as for men since the COVID-19 pandemic began. Early evidence on the impact of the epidemic suggests women face disproportionate increases in caring responsibilities and disruption to working hours, job security, and paid work capacity. This is most acute for those with children under 12, and I can personally confirm that, being myself a mom of 2 young kids who stayed home for the last 4 months of the school year. Mm-hmm. Another perspective is that some leaders at work are having essential workers on their staff to come into the office periodically rather than work from home all the time, or asking them to work on special projects, both of which likely gives those people extra one-on-one time with the boss. Because leadership positions are still dominated by men, especially in STEM fields, this is putting women at a distinct disadvantage. It is then our responsibility as employers to closely monitor and mitigate the gender impact of our decisions. For example, create flexible or hybrid schedules for everyone. Be careful not to exclude women from side conversation, assign projects based on skills and only skills.
It's so important that you've done this research, because I think part of this for us is to make sure that people are aware that there have been more negative consequences for women in the workforce than for men. So thank you very much for getting that out. I think it's a really important leadership role that Randstad has taken on to make sure that this information is out there, so that we can now start to take action to counter those impacts. So continuing along this conversation about diversity and inclusion, one of the things that, of course, has been happening with the pandemic is this increased narrative and dialogue and action around diversity and inclusion and anti-racism specifically. And that's been a relief to me and a relief to those of us who've worked in this field, because the conversation is actually happening at a heightened level. So one of the things that we advocate for at Actua is for that diversity and perspective absolutely to be happening within STEM. We want to make sure it's reflective of all the different voices in the country, but also that we work to get that diversity into executive positions, higher level positions, onto boards, because we know how important that is to continue to create systemic change. One of the things that we're most proud about, and certainly that Randstad will be involved in because of your support of our Future Skills project with our instructors, is how much work we've done to get that instructor pool to be diverse. So over 60% of those 1,000 instructors are identify as women, 40% identify with a visible minority group, 12% identify as living with a disability. And what we want to make sure of is that diversity actually makes it up into those higher levels of positions. So what do you think needs to change in systems for us to get that diversity at higher levels? And if it's okay, I'll ask you sort of a double-barrel question. Can you also speak to what you think the Black Lives Matter movement has meant to inside workplaces? So either broadly or inside Randstad specifically.
Yeah, thank you for this question. And I'll start by the second part of the question. The Black Lives Matter movement is sparking a lot of necessary, uncomfortable, but rich and meaningful conversation in the workplace as well. And it forces us to self-reflect and face how we deal with our own biases. At Randstad, we have the RISE Committee. It's an employee-led group that works at raising awareness on the importance of cultivating a diverse and inclusive workplace. As part of an initiative from this committee, I had the chance to recently host an internal conversation with people of color, sharing their personal stories. It was a very enlightening moment, which reminded me as a leader how important it is not to take things for granted and be vigilant at all times. And I think this kind of events, and as sad as it can be, is the trigger for and the key for the changes that we need. As we have to encourage more diversity in leadership roles, we must make a conscious effort to nurture an inclusive culture, provide better mentoring and sponsorship opportunities to culturally diverse employees, identify more diverse staff with leadership potential, use internal networks more to support diversity and inclusion, and empower diverse staff as much as we can at all times.
Thank you. That I think, you know, again, it's a leadership position that will influence others in the corporate sector to follow suit. So just to wrap up, because all of us, and you mentioned this, being at home with 2 young children, and you know, many of us in the same position, but also working full time in very high, demanding jobs, as we both are. I also have 2 little kids at home, and it's been incredibly challenging. And as we head back into the school year, but more importantly, as time has gone on in the pandemic, you know, we're realizing that this is not just a few weeks of an emergency, and then we'll go back into normal life. How do you think more broadly the COVID pandemic will impact work going forward? How will it change the future of work now that we know that this isn't just something that's going to go away in a few weeks?
Yes, sure. I think remote work will not be viewed as a reality that has to be the exact same replica of in-office work. It will become its own reality where kids can pop up in the background, or your partner coming in the room, or, you know, from time to time. Virtual workers, though, won't be the odd ones anymore, left out and subject to suspicion, where we would ask, are they really working? As everyone will experience the same. I think we will evaluate productivity differently on the outcomes and concrete contribution, rather than physical presence in the office as an indicator of productivity. As an example, the results-only work environment model is growing more and more popular in organizations. I also think that people will find new and creative ways to create a sense of community and engaging social interactions to foster these spontaneous encounters and relationship building opportunities that office space traditionally create. These spaces are often the source of innovation. The office may become not a permanent place, but a creative space, where brainstorming sessions happen and become an add-on to virtual work, as opposed to the default for where people work. This added flexibility will level the playing field and could benefit on the long term to women. There are still a lot of unknowns about what the world of work will look like, because it's still very new and a very short period of time. I do think that the new Generation Z, will be very influential in defining how we work as individuals and how companies operate. They have an understanding of how to make connections digitally that is unparalleled by previous generations. They are a well-educated, social conscious group of people with a strong desire for flexibility and an attraction to companies that are diverse and purpose-driven. Companies that want to innovate and thrive in a post-COVID world will need to understand the priorities of this up-and-coming generation, and appreciate the value that their outlook and perspective will bring.
I think that's such a great point, and I do think it's like a minor miracle that no child has popped into the background for either of us. So that's excellent. I don't know how you get yours to stay out. I'm like, I've entered the stage of bribery and a little bit of a little threat. But yes, I agree. It'll have to look different. And I love the point that you made about the next generation leading the way on how we establish and maintain social connection, because that's one of the things that I know on my team I've missed the most. I love being there face to face with the team, you know, either working with them directly or seeing them collaborate with each other. And we really act as a family in that sense, you know, our work family. So I think figuring out how those social connections get maintained and stewarded moving forward is going to be key. And I agree with you that this next generation they've grown up doing that, and they're so much more comfortable. And I love highlighting that and allowing them to take a leadership role to help us with that moving forward. So with that, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation, and for the leadership work that Randstad is doing in the space of diversity and inclusion. Again, the partnership that we have established to support Actua's work will have a very significant impact, not only on making sure that the future work is diverse and inclusive, but also that there's equal opportunity to these types of experiences right now. So I really do thank you for that investment.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm as a board member of the Randstad Foundation, I'm really excited with the partnership that we create. I really do think that we will make a change together. So thanks again for having me today.
My pleasure. Nice to speak with you.
Nice to speak with you.
Take care.
Bye.